All right, hello everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about animating lists in Jetpack Compose. As you can see, if we're going here through the Jetpack Compose for Android Basics, you get to the end, it's animating this list, and it's able. You can see it's click one for show, and then click one. Then you got to click again for show less. That's a good animation, but it's not exactly what I was looking for. I wanted to create an animation that where you click once, it'll show. Then when you click another one, that one would show, but then the previous one would close. Now, I was able to sort of get that here. As you can see, we click it, and then it closes and does the same thing. Clicks, and then it rotates over. My emulator is a little slow here just because my computer is running a lot of software with OBS. But nonetheless, you see click. But one thing I want to notice, since I'm using a lazy row here, anytime we scroll and then scroll back, it reverts to its default state. That's really due to the nature of the lazy row that I have this in. But nonetheless, it still works how I intended it, and I think this would look really good if you had a larger screen. So with that being said, now you can see how it works. Let's just go in and talk about the nitty-gritty. Right, so I was able to do this through the kind of focus events, and anytime I'm clicking and declicking, I'm admitting focusable events. I have system crash here, I'm running too much software. Let's close it here, it should reopen again. But nonetheless, we can just talk about it here. So the first thing we do is we want to create this focus requester. Remember, we're using this just to remember cross recompositions. But then this focus requester, as you can see up here, initial focus reference to be able to request focus programmatically. So this is how we interact, essentially how we're going to be able to say we want to request focus when we're clicking. And next here, this interaction source. Anytime a user and you see just returns a mutable interaction source that can be hoisted and provide components allowing listening to interaction changes. So essentially, anytime a user clicks, a swipe, a long click, a tap, a focus event, it's going to emit some sort of interaction. Now, this interaction source is going to allow us to set up a place to essentially almost like a pipeline. You'll see what I mean here when we actually set it up. But we then set this to get to determine if a value is focused or not, or to determine if one of these cards is focused or not. We set up, we call this collect is focus state. Now this is going to say anything that's been emitted to this interaction source, we're going to collect its value here. Now this value here is important because, as you can see, it's a state boolean, and then we just get the value here with value. Then we get is focused, and that's going to be a boolean value, which is going to be important for our animations. But another important thing, this collect is focused as state. As you see here, this is a state boolean. So if we know about composables are going to cause a recomposition anytime a state value is actually changed. So that's what's going to allow us to, anytime we click, there's actually two recompositions happening. There's a recomposition happening on the one being deselected and a recomposition on the one being selected. Right, so then we get into the actual animating. This is super easy, mainly because this animate DP is state. If you hover over it, it quite literally says that it's a fire and forget animation function. And so that's all it means. All we really need to do is define a target value, and anytime this target value changes, an animation is going to occur. As you see, we have it set up to is focused. So anytime this is focus changes, it's either going to be 0 or 48. Then we have this animation spec, and this animation spec, it's what gives it the spring value. As you can see, we kind of click here, we get a nice little bounce, and it closes, we get another bounce. Same thing, really nice. And that's what this spring is doing. It's basically behind the scenes creating all the spring animation for us. And this damping ratio and the stiffness, that's just how you want the spring to react. These are the default values that it gives, and I just haven't changed them because I kind of like how it is. Next, we actually set up to modifying our card to interact with all these focus and interaction sources that we've defined. So again, on the modifier, first is we're saying we want this to be able to register focus events. So we essentially say we want this element to be able to change focus events programmatically. Then next, we set this focusable, this interaction source. So we're saying any focus event, we wanted to admit that focus event to this interaction source. So once we actually get to this clickable here, you see we're requesting focus. That request focus event is going to be sent to this interaction source that we've defined here. So we've got ahead, and anytime we click, oh, and then lastly, this is just to say that the padding is going to be, it can't be less than 0. Oh, and then actually, that's what we're animating here. We're animating the padding. And since we haven't defined where, we're animating all the padding, and that's why we get these big and these little. It's big and that's little, and you see it's padding on all 4 sides. Now, if you only wanted to animate the top part, you could just go like that, define top, bottom, start, same thing. Right, so anytime we click, we're saying we want to focus we're saying we want to request focus, and depending where we click, it's actually going to take focus from something else, from another one, from another card. But when we click, we're requesting the focus, which is going to send that focus to this interaction source. And this interaction source is being listened by this value here. This collect is focus as state, and then we're going to get its value. But right, like we said, this returns a state value, so it's going to cause a recomposition. Now, this element currently has the focus, and then when you click to a new element, this element again loses focus. So it's going to admit its own a loss focus event, which is going to be sent to its interaction source, which again is going to be listened by this collect is focused as state value, which again is going to change the is focus value, which is going to cause the reverse animation. Yeah, with that being said, it's not too difficult. I'll leave a link down the description below to these focus events and these interactions, kind of where I got the documentation for that. But essentially, yeah, that's it. The main thing you just need to remember here is that what we're actually doing is animating all sides of the padding. With that being said, that's pretty much everything. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.